Good afternoon. Thank you for joining the Texas Broadband Development Office in the sixth webinar detailing the subgrantee selection process for the Texas Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, or BEAD program. I'm Erin Bennell, Senior Broadband Program Coordinator here at the BDO, and throughout the presentation, I will be joined by John Wilkins, a member of our team helping to implement the program. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please submit them in the chat. If you are unable to use the chat, please email your questions to broadband@cpa.texas.gov. One of our team members will be monitoring the inbox and will add questions to the chat throughout the presentation. We will be sure to answer all submitted questions at the end of the presentation. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded and posted on the BDO website for future use. In this presentation, we will be reviewing core components of project costs, including financial and technical components of Form 3, the match requirements and the Texas Match Assistance Program, or TMAP, the best and final offer, or BAFO, and the award and funding processes. But first, we will review the basics of the BEAD program. Funded by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the BEAD program is a $42 billion federally funded program aiming to get all Americans online. Texas was allocated $3.3 billion in BEAD funding to achieve three goals. 1, achieve universal broadband access and quality service. 2, augment deployment projects by increasing broadband subscriptions through affordability and adoption strategies. And 3, design, build, and run an efficient, compliant, and competitive grant program. The vision for Texas's BEAD program is to improve quality of life and promote economic growth by enabling fast, reliable, and affordable broadband connectivity for all residents and businesses of Texas. The Texas BEAD program is a multi-year program with several detailed steps. As of today, the BDO has received approval of its initial proposal, Volumes 1 and 2, which are available on the BDO website for review. The BDO has also completed steps for the BEAD challenge process and waiting to receive approval from NTIA on the final list of eligible locations. The focus of this webinar is on the subgrantee selection process, which is planned to begin May 15, 2025. The subgrantee selection process can be broken down into several steps, beginning with pre-registration through the final analysis and public comment period. On March 17th, the BDO kicked off the pre-registration process, allowing applicants to submit qualification materials before the release of the Notice of Funding Availability, or NOFA. Pre-registration is still open. To register, please visit register.broadband.texas.gov to review provided guidance and submit your application. The next milestone will be on Thursday, May 15th, with the release of the NOFA, which will officially start the subgrantee selection process. Today, we will be focusing on the Round 1 and 2 submission and scoring phases of the program, specifically focusing on the financial elements. This is the second webinar covering components of project costs. For additional information for the topics on the left-hand side of the screen, please refer to our last webinar hosted on April 9th. Today, we will be covering the topics listed on the right side of the screen. So now let's dive into components of Form 3. As a reminder, Form 3 covers project-specific information, including administrative details, project overview, such as project narrative, proposed project areas, locations served, costs, and the funding requests. It also includes technical requirements, where applicants will answer questions regarding the technical feasibility of the proposed projects. Topics include network scalability, construction methods, deployed equipment, backhaul, and middle mile sufficiency and network design. Information on previously awarded funds and compliance with grant agreements, compliance with laws, including labor and employment laws, and statements of agreement. Applicants will be asked to upload documents for several questions in Form 3, including several templates applicants will be required to complete and submit. And we will be reviewing a few of these templates today. One required template is the project plan and milestones template. This will be an Excel template applicants complete and upload as part of their application. Using the categories listed on the right side of the screen, applicants will note relevant milestones and the duration of each phase of the project deployment. When filling out the template, it is crucial the project plan matches the proposed budget, as it will be used for tracking during the monitoring and compliance phase of the program. Applicants must also complete and submit the financial pro forma template. The pro forma template will be used to demonstrate the sustainability of the proposed project and is considered in the scoring process. The BDO is asking applicants to show details across several categories through the construction phase and useful life of the network, or 10 years after construction. Applicants must submit a minimum of 3 years of information. The BDO understands that forward-looking projects may require making some assumptions. We just ask applicants to be clear about those assumptions in the template. Additionally, we want to note that the pro forma is developed to capture the information the Texas BDO requires to provide a fair score. It is more complex than some states and simpler than others. Specific details on scoring can be found in the Texas Initial Proposal, Volume 2, which is available on the BDO website. John, anything to add?
Yeah, sure, Aaron. I'll just echo what you said, and we're going to show everyone on the next slide an example. We certainly understand that doing project pro formas looking 5, 6, 7 years out obviously involved some projections. We understand different companies might have different assumptions about some of the key drivers, penetration rates, things like that. As Aaron said, what we're just looking is that you give us a clear version of your key assumptions, the key inputs, in basically a desktop version of a pro forma. The reviewers will look at them. There's a little bit of scoring, as Aaron said. But at the end of the day, what we're just really looking for here is the gut check. We want to see that you've done some math showing the project is sustainable. And if we have questions, there'll be follow-up. But as Aaron said, the idea here is we want some information. We do understand there's complexity. We're not asking you to do the ample level of detail on everything. So we know there's uncertainty, but we are looking for a good, clear profile of how you see the project financially.
Thanks, John. For example, here is a preview of the pro forma template. Applicants will be asked to fill out information for each category throughout the useful life of the network, including key metrics for each year. So we'll just take a second for you all to look. The final template we got. Sorry, John.
Sorry, on that prior slide, just as folks are looking at it, I'll just highlight one particular item that I'm sure people will have questions about as you start thinking about it more. If you look at that last line in the first set of rows, the cash flow and cumulative cash flow lines. So as Aaron said, this is not the most complex, nor is it the simplest. But for example, we're not asking for a full balance sheet view and sources of cash type of view. However, what we are going to look at for sure will be that last line. What is your peak negative cumulative cash flow for the project? Net of the way the grant funds will come in over the 4 years, and that's the kind of thing that the reviewers will look at and say, okay, well, this applicant, their pro forma shows about this much of a peak cash need during the build. How does that square with, for example, the financial information they provided to us about financial capacity? So again, we're just looking to do the reasonable gut check on the project and the applicant. But again, we're not looking for some detailed line item by line item balance sheet translation into the cash flow statement.
Thanks, John. The final template we will cover is the budget justification worksheet. For applicants familiar with the BEAD program, this will look very familiar. The template will include an overall summative view on the first page with additional pages to break down costs further across personnel, fringe costs, travel, equipment, supplies, contractors, construction, and other direct costs. For each category, there will be subsequent sheets in the Excel asking for a more detailed breakdown of each cost. Note that the budget submitted in the application period will be the budget for the awarded project. While completing the form, make sure your estimates are realistic for the work you and your staff will be completing throughout this project. And next, we will cover the match requirements, including the Texas Match Assistance Program. For each awarded project area, subgrantees must provide a match of at least 25% of overall project costs. The 25% match will demonstrate a commitment to the project and help extend BEAD funding. The BDO will be requiring a cash match and will not accept in-kind match. Additionally, match funding cannot come from another federal program, except for those provided in the Infrastructure Act, including the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, the CARES Act, the Consolidated Appropriations Act, or the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. To support subgrantees, the BDO has established the Texas Match Assistance Program. The Texas Match Assistance Program, or TMAP, offers state matching funds for up to 12.5% of the project costs, or half of the 25% match requirement on a dollar-for-dollar basis. TMAP is funded through the Broadband Infrastructure Fund, approved by Texans in November 2023. Applicants must opt in to receive TMAP funds and are not automatically enrolled to receive this funding. TMAP will not be available for projects whose match requirement has been waived, including NTIA's predetermined high-cost areas. Full details on TMAP, including the eligible use of funds, will also be available within the Notice of Funding Availability. TMAP funds must follow federal rules and may only be used for allowable costs. In general, costs must be reasonable, necessary, and conform to generally accepted accounting principles. TMAP funds may only be used to cover costs incurred during the project's period of performance, as defined by Texas's statute, and must be appropriately documented. In certain circumstances, the 25% match requirement may be waived. During the application process, applicants may request the BDO submit a match waiver request to NTIA on their behalf. In addition to the request, applicants must provide a description explaining how a full or partial waiver is necessary for the project to be completed. A request for a waiver will not count against an applicant. Additionally, NTIA has already waived the match requirement for designated high-cost areas. Applicants that submit waivers may also request TMAP funds. John, anything to add?
Yeah, well, I mean, just to step back for a second and kind of pull apart a few of the threads there. A couple of just core reminders for everyone. The 25% match requirement is in the federal statute. It is the federal default in the IJA BEAD law. It's not a Texas requirement. And relatedly, as Aaron noted, your application may request a waiver, which essentially you will do if in your application you indicate that the total cost of the project versus the match you can contribute, including if your match is matched dollar for dollar from the TMAP program. If that does not add up to the 25%, you basically check a box saying, yes, I acknowledge this would require a waiver. So that's how you express to the state of Texas that you would need a waiver. But the state cannot grant your waiver. All the state can do is submit that waiver request with some supporting justification to NTIA, who has to approve that waiver. And so then just to come to the TMAP program, for applicants that have been looking at other states, the TMAP program is a pretty unique feature of the BEAD program in Texas. There aren't many states we're aware of that. I mean, there was some discussion in some states, but I think Texas is the only state that really is doing this. Or if we miss one, I'd be interested to know that. But the goal of the TMAP program is to really limit the need to ask for waivers. We really want to try to help to get all of our applicants up to that 25%, because there's nothing guaranteed about a waiver request at the federal level. And the economics of some of the higher cost areas of our state, are not great. And the TMAP program is the state just saying, we really understand that and we want to help you get to that. So strongly encourage to look as hard as you can at the ability to meet that 25% match requirement in your application, given that essentially under TMAP, your own contribution only has to be 12.5%. So really look hard at that as you design your applications.
Thanks, John. So what does this all look like? In scenario 1, the applicant commits to providing no less than 12.5% of total project costs in private matching capital. The applicant can thus request 12.5% in TMAP funds to meet the total 12.5% requirement. The total 25% requirement. In scenario 2, the applicant commits to more than the required match, 37.5%, which reduces their BEAD funding request. They may request up to 12.5% of project costs through TMAP. By providing more capital match, this applicant has increased their score by reducing their minimum BEAD program outlay. In scenario 3, the applicant requested a partial waiver of 15%. If granted by NTIA, the applicant may commit to providing 5% and request up to 5% of funds through TMAP. In scenario 4, the applicant has requested a full waiver. If granted, the applicant may not request TMAP funding, but is also not required to provide any match funding. Please note that the waiver may not be granted by NTIA. If the waiver is denied, the applicant must provide the required match for the awarded project area. And next, we will discuss the BAFO round and award and funding process. Following the gating criteria review for application rounds 1 and 2, overlapping applications will be moved to a best and final offer stage, or BAFO. Applicants will be notified via the portal, and there will not be conversation with the BDO about the BAFO, nor will applicants be permitted to know who they are overlapping with. Applicants can choose to let their application stand as initially submitted, or revise the requested funding amount and severability matrix. The BAFO round will enable applicants to make their application the most competitive offer ahead of the deconfliction process. After the subgrantee selection process, the BDO will conduct an analysis with the goal of ensuring all locations are served. The final list of selected applications will be submitted to NTIA for final approval as part of the final proposal. Until the BDO receives approval from NTIA, selected applications will be granted a provisional award. Once NTIA has approved the final proposal, provisional subgrantees will have 30 days to present the BDO their letter of credit and execute the grant agreement. A draft grant agreement will be issued with the release of the NOFA. Grant agreements will be designed by the BDO and are not open for negotiation. Funding will occur on a fixed amount subaward basis. Please refer to the previous webinar for more details about fixed amount subawards. As a reminder, there are 2 more webinars covering topics related to the BEAD subgrantee selection process. Please visit the BDO website to register for these 2. Additionally, pre-registration is now available. Applicants are encouraged to log into the BEAD application portal and get familiar with the application portal before the round 1 application period begins. While in there, you may also submit forms 1 and 2 to officially pre-register for the BEAD program. My apologies. After this, we encourage you to attend the remaining subgrantee selection process webinars. Also, please regularly check for updates on the Texas BDO newsletter and on the BDO website. And please sign up for the BDO mailing list to get updates on the final list of eligible BSLs once it is published. Additional information can be found on the website, including the initial proposal volume 2. You can also find the previous webinars covering other parts of the subgrantee selection process on the BDO website. And additional details and guidance on the forms for pre-registration can be found in the Texas BEAD application guide, which is now available on our application portal landing page. So with that, we will pause and start taking your questions. Reminder to please submit your questions in the chat. And if you are having any issues with the chat, please feel free to email us at broadband@cpa.texas.gov.
Are the final locations approved by NTIA? And if not, when do you expect for the next to be approved?
They are not yet approved by NTIA. We have officially submitted and completed a round of curing. We have not heard anything yet from NTIA. So as soon as they are approved, we'll be sure to let you all know.
Excellent. And then are the eligible locations that were sent to NTIA available?
All of our submitted challenges and determined positions on challenges is available on our BEAD registration landing page or the application portal landing page. So you can see our final determinations, who challenged what, for which locations, and what challenge type.
Excellent. And is Texas, excuse me, is Texas still targeting May 15th bid date? And does yesterday's guidance for a 90-day extension by NTIA change Texas's perspective on timing?
The 90-day extension does not change our perspective. We will still be moving forward and releasing the notice of funding availability on May 15th. Of course, if you would like more information about that, you are more than welcome to join our industry roundtable, which is on April 29th.
Okay, Erin, is an application and resource guide for Form 3 released similar to what we had for round 1 and 2?
So we have not released the application and resource guide for rounds 1 or 2. We did release an application resource guide for pre-registration materials or forms 1 and 2, which is currently available on our landing page as well. We are preparing an application resource guide to go along for form 3 or rounds 1 and 2 of the application period. However, in order to maintain proper process and procedures for our procurement processes here at CPA, that will not be released until at least the notice of funding availability is released. So May 15th at the absolute earliest.
Thank you, Erin. Will LEO satellites be included in round 1 now?
Until we hear additional guidance from NTIA about any changes related to alternative technologies. Alternative technologies will continue to follow the alternative technology public policy guidance released by NTIA that is available on Broadband USA for everybody to read.
Thank you, Erin. Do you know when the subgrantee approvals are set to go out?
I'm going to make an assumption and assume we're talking about the preliminary award before NTIA has approved our final proposal. That is probably going to be released sometime in early 2026. Of course, things may happen that might get delayed into maybe May or March of 2026. But once we release the notice of funding availability, a set date will be released as well.
Excellent. How will the BAFO and severability processes be handled/processed?
Yes, so if a submitted application is overlapping with another project area, we will submit through the portal an option to complete a BAFO or best and final offer. This would include amending your budget and amending your severability matrix to make it a more competitive offer or to be more selective of which project area units you would like to maintain or remove from your project area if it comes down to it. That new budget sheet and that new severability matrix will be taken and used for the deconfliction process. We do have a previous webinar about the deconfliction process as well, so I would recommend going back and rewatching that webinar to get more information about how that specific process is handled.
Thanks, Erin. I'm not seeing any questions in the BDO inbox or any more in the chat, so I'll let you know if one comes across.
Thanks, Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
Erin, by the way, in that last question about the severability and the deconfliction and such, there will be some additional just sort of written down description of how those steps will work in the NOFA as well. Like we understand that those are very important questions as you're thinking about your applications, and so some of that will be written down in kind of official format in the NOFA as well.
Thanks for the clarification, John.
Okay, Erin, we got another question. We submitted a subgrantee application prior to April 4th. Do you know when we may hear about any RFI? I'm guessing RFI. Got it.
So if you're referring to the pre-registration applications that became available on March 17th, we are actively reviewing those right now and preparing our revision comments to send them out. We are reviewing in the order of which they were submitted. So unless I am able to know the exact name of the organization, I can't give you a specific date or tell you where you are in the list, but if you email us, we can definitely provide a little bit more information about that. Alrighty, well, if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap up for the day. Thank you all so much for attending this webinar. If you have any other questions that come up throughout the day, please feel free to email us. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.